If you like today's content, please like, subscribe, click the notification bell, comment down below, and share. Thank you. However you are and whenever you are, welcome good souls of the planet and beyond to Paranormal Now. I'm Alan B. Smith. Join us as we traverse the cosmic highway of paranormal portals and tantalizing turnoffs. Tonight is Family Night, though that is a tentative name because I'm not the best at naming things. And we will have a roundtable of friends and colleagues, as it were, and talk about everything. Paranormal, ufology, what have you. So joining me in just a bit is Carol behind the Obsidian Curtain on KGRA, Mark Antonio of Skytour Radio on KGRA, Ryan Sprague of Somewhere in the Skies podcast, which is also on KGRA Radio, and of course, Jason McClellan of RoguePlanet.tv. Jason, we're just going to welcome you in as family tonight, but this is our first time hanging out. And for those that are listening, I'm trying to record this on video, so hopefully we will catch this magical moment in real Technicolor and share it with you later. If not, we have this air for you as you normally tune in. So, as we go, please share your thoughts and experiences with us during or after the show on Facebook, facebook.com/paranormalnowradio, Twitter @paranormal_now, and of course, join us in the KGRA chat room where you can share your thoughts, questions, gripes, whatever it is. And just look out for some of those GIFs in there. It's a dangerous road in the KGRA chat room on occasion. But hey, you all know who you are. All right, so the open lines will be open later tonight for you to call in, ask our guests your questions, and honestly, I do want to hear from you what your experience is like right now dealing with COVID-19 and the situation that we are all in together. So if you want to sound off, go ahead and call 85-KGRA-LIVE. That's the Paranormal Radio app hotline, 85-KGRA-LIVE, or 855-472-5483. All right, so I just want to bring a couple of things to your attention. For those of us in the New York area, if you are curious about helping out or volunteering, there's a group called Invisible Hands in NYC. You can go to www.invisiblehandsdeliver.com. Now, this is a food delivery service for those particularly elderly who can't get out and get food. That said, if you're going to do that, considering the latest proclamations by the federal government, make sure you have the gear, masks, gloves, and whatever you need to wear. And I would implore you, before jumping in, just contact Invisible Hands and have a conversation with them and make sure you're ready to go. So you can find their email and contact right on that splash page on their website. Other news, Contact in the Desert is canceled and will be rescheduled for June 4th to June 7th of the year 2021. So that's a long time. It's well over a year. So that's a major downer. And of course, there's so many things we could talk about as far as cancellations. And tonight, I welcome the guests here, my friends and colleagues who I all appreciate very much, to share their experiences, what it's like for them going through COVID-19. I know Ryan just did a podcast that I was fortunate to be a part of. Thanks, Ryan, where he had a whole slew of podcasters share their support, their suggestions to get through this. And I think that all of us in this field should be doing that for each other and together. So go check out that podcast as well. That's Somewhere in the Skies. And tonight, yeah. So let's just tell it like it is. So I'm going to start with Carol from KGRA behind the Obsidian Curtain. And Carol, what's your experience been like so far dealing with COVID-19?
Well, it's a crazy thing. Living in earthquake country as we do, there is that component of visible damage. Well, that doesn't exist with us. We're dealing with an invisible little critter. As I go through the neighborhood, construction work is still going on some new homes. Mm-hmm. The schools, of course, are shut. We're about 2 blocks to the east of the Claremont colleges. That's 5 combined colleges, separate quarters, etc., sharing a campus. And as of March 23rd, those students are all gone. And I must say, it's something that I experience when they normally go home, which is in, late May after graduation, which ain't gonna happen. There is a distinct, I don't know, it's a difference in the buzz, the vibes, a hum. Probably some of it is, real sound, but it may just be a perception. But as of March 23rd, they're all gone home and they're not coming back. I noticed something strange. At pre-dawn, okay, the sound of traffic on the 10 freeway, which I think probably is about 1.5 miles from us, is distinctly the same, which is a mind blow. However, we're a little more than 2 blocks south of Route 66, Foothill Boulevard, and that traffic is exactly the same. The Saturday night traffic was exactly the same. So that is that's kind of, it's an unusual thing. But again, this we see no damage to the infrastructure. Our lights, our power, the grid has not gone down. So that is profoundly different in terms of what you think, a country in crisis would experience. And that's it. I don't have, an enormous, robust social life. My cyber friends, we're all still in touch. In fact, of course, as everybody's experiencing more than ever. And bless the internet. So, and that does it for me. We are probably an hour, less than an hour from, we're east of Los Angeles, but still in LA County. And I know they are hard hit. I know that what has yet to impact in real numbers is the significant homeless population. And that's really a heartbreak. When that happens, if it's not already happening, I didn't listen to local news today, that's going to be awful. I know there is a ship that is docked now in San Pedro Harbor, which I think it's called the Mercy. And this is an effort to take non-infected COVID-19 patients. It is for people who are having non-elective surgeries, shall we say, medical events, crises, so that they are not contaminated in a hospital. And that's all I got.
It's interesting you mentioned, emergencies, because I remember when I was younger in the good old 80s, our grid was still having blackouts. So I remember being a kid loving when a blackout would happen and we'd have to light the candles. I love that experience. I'm sure my parents didn't so much. Right. But, I think for a lot of us who are just old enough, we've been through a certain number of emergency situations, social breakdowns and that sort, that it kind of primes you a little bit to get prepared for an event like this. Even though this is unique, there are elements of this event that we've all experienced to some degree before. But people who are much younger, in their teens and early 20s, this is a brand new thing for them altogether. So I don't know, Ryan, have you spoken to anyone in particular that's, in their 20s or younger generation that really is confused, doesn't know what to do? Or
Yeah, I mean, I have a younger sister who lives in the central New York area. So a lot of the rules and regulations and policies in New York City are also in central New York, too. And she comes from a generation that was just on the cusp of 9/11, which I think is what a lot of New Yorkers are. I don't want to say comparing it to that because they are two completely different things, but the city and the way that this specific city is dealing with it, and kind of how things are going, it's very quiet. It's very people are trying to help each other, but unlike 9/11, we can't just go out and help these businesses because everything's closed. We can't even hug one another because we'll get sick. Yeah. So it's a very different thing in some respects, but I do hear a lot of people who were in New York City during 9/11 sort of compare it to that, but multiplied by 1,000. This is affecting, 9/11 affected the whole world, but in no way like a pandemic does. So it's been interesting trying to just keep up with it. And every time we think that, we're kind of on the cusp of something, a resolution, a decrease, the questions just keep rising. So it's uncertain, but things like this are what are keeping me going. And, like the podcast I did too, that was more for me, to be completely honest. I wanted to hear from other people. How do you deal with this? Because I don't know how either. I'm scared one minute, I'm sad the next, I'm fine right now talking to you guys. So, it's very bipolar. I guess that's so good.
No, I think that's a good descriptive right there. Yeah, because one second, I'm like, look, it's out of our control. There's nothing we can do, and I'm like pretty zen about it. And then the next second, like anxiety hits, and I'm like, wait, but we don't know what's going to happen in 3 weeks,
Exactly.
Because they just changed this thing today. But for me, it's like the not knowing and just like letting go and just accepting that we don't know helps in that regard. Mark, what about yourself? How are you handling the situation?
Well, I don't get out much. And the reason for that is I own my own company, right? So I'm always doing work. I'm doing a Navy project right now. I have a 10-foot submarine in my shop that I'm building for Uncle Sam. Now, the show that it was supposed to be on has been canceled, but they still want it. And it's a new design of a submarine. So I'm heads down on that. But I can't say this hasn't touched me either. I mean, 2 of my nieces have corona. They were just diagnosed yesterday or the day before. But you know what? It still isn't causing the same types of deaths that the regular flu has. And I'm not saying it's a regular flu. It's virulent. I recognize that. But we're in a media age. And Jason might know this best, actually, from his background, I think. We're in a media age where once the media latches onto something and calls it bad, then they continue to push it and push it and push it until it just stinks to high heaven. And I read an article, which I've passed around countless times. My thumbs are tired from texting it. It's an article by a doctor, Dr. Ioannidis, and he's Stanford's chief of medicine, and he has a PhD in biomedicine, and biomechanical, biomedicine, and he basically has an article out there that you should look up. It's on Stat News. I think it's statnews.com, and the article is titled, basically, it's a fiasco in the making. This whole virus, it's a deadly virus, yes, But the key thing that I think here and around here, we hear people who have the flu, and most people are going to survive this. There's people I probably have seen within the last 24 hours that probably will have it, but it's going to be probably mild for them, and they'll never even go to the doctor. They'll never even know they had it. Those are the vast uncounted numbers, which are going to drive down the mortality rate of this virus. So around here, the only thing I can say that was different is my son was coming home from Rhode Island the other night, and he goes by the sub base, and he goes over a bridge, which goes over the River Thames, which is right in Groton, New London, Connecticut. Usually that bridge is packed with cars, and as he was coming home at 7 o'clock at night, there wasn't a single car in sight ahead or behind him, and he was the only one on the bridge.
Whoa.
He actually thought the highway was closed, and he thought, ooh, am I in The Walking Dead?
Yeah. No, yeah, it feels like that.
Yeah, but so little things change. I had to go to the auto parts store to get some oil for my truck tonight, and they closed at 8. I got there at 7. They were closed. So people are shifting their hours, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
I don't think that there's any major changes other than hours changing. I mean, I've gone down the main road here in Bristol, Connecticut. I've gone to Bristol, and TGI Fridays has an empty parking lot. But you can do takeout. Okay, Burger King empty parking lot, but you can do takeout. So everyone's changing the style of how they're doing business for the moment. But they're all losing money, and that's obviously a problem, but still, as far as I'm concerned, I just haven't seen too much, but then again, I do have sort of a limited view.
True that. All right. Thanks, Mark. Jason, what about yourself?
Well, like Mark, I don't really get out all that often, and a large part of that is because I'm fortunate to work at home. So I don't have a daily commute like a lot of people do, and that's
Sure.
how a lot of people's lives are different right now without that daily commute being shut at home. Biggest difference for me is my wife is a law professor, and her having to be home and shifting everything she does and create a curriculum that's online, which doesn't really happen for law school.
Yep.
Trying to figure out how all of that really works and deal with students who are juggling and trying to figure out all of this new process as well. It's stressful, and I feel her stress, and I understand the student stress, and it's just weird. And it's also weird getting used to having my wife work at home with me. We work in different places, but and fortunately we have good internet, but we do try to check each other's schedules and find out, make sure I'm not doing a web conference when she's teaching a class and things like that.
Sure.
So that's been interesting. The public panic is the most interesting and kind of scary thing to watch. And, that's where I notice it most when I go out, and the only time I do go out is to go to the grocery store. So I order as much online that I can, but what you can get online is very limited right now.
Yeah.
So I do have to go out to the grocery store, and you see the grocery stores that are completely picked over, and you see people every week. It's getting progressively worse with the fears and people taking precautions, which is good. I mean, you see people now at the supermarket with gloves on, with masks on, just like over the top. And here in Phoenix, we have one of our major grocery stores. It's the Kroger grocery store here called Fry's. All the Kroger chains have implemented like these sneeze guards, basically these big plastic shields in front of the cashiers.
Yeah.
So
That's
they've done
smart.
that. They put signs on the floor to demonstrate how far apart you should stand from the person in front of you in line at checkout.
Yeah.
I bring my own bags to the grocery store, so I had my bags up there. And because I brought my own bags, they made me bag my own groceries because they didn't want to touch my bags that I brought from home. So a lot of these little changes. That's where I notice it the most. But for the most part, I live at home, so don't really notice it all that much in my daily life.
Yeah. We wear our masks when we go to the grocery store. But it's interesting how each establishment is handling it differently. So we went to the store recently, and there was no splash guard, for the cashier, which I think is a brilliant idea. I mean, they really should do that, because that's what it is. It's like the littlest particles, droplets that pass between us. I think that's smart. But if you don't have that, get them a mask. Like get your employees something to protect them. There's a small grocery store near us. They did that weeks ago. And this other place, it's like we're 2 feet away from this person. Do you know? And it's really, I think employers really need to do a better job. Not all, but some employers really need to do a better job. If you're going to ask your employees to come into work, then you better do right by them.
Yeah, absolutely. But a big challenge right now is, the limited supply.
Can you get
right?
masks?
I mean, they can't even get the stuff they need for their employees. And I know at the grocery stores, they try to do a good job with, taking extra measures to make sure things are clean. And I know at the start of all of this, my grocery store certainly had a lot of wipes as you walked in, so you could wipe your cart down and whatever else you were going to touch. Those don't exist anymore because they can't even get wipes. So
yeah, Trader Joe's, same thing. I mean, I guess I would think about a week. They had like wipes, so you can wipe down your cart, and then they were gone, and that was it. There was nothing left to stock. But I do know that in New York, I think it was yesterday or this morning, I heard there was a man who apparently had bought 85,000 masks, and he was hoarding them. And the FBI is investigating, who purchased however many masks, however many months or weeks ago. So they busted on his door and was like, "That you're caught, buddy." And that. I know that's not everyone, and it doesn't happen a lot, but those 85,000 masks can really help out a lot of people.
But a lot of masks.
Yeah, but then you have great stories of volunteers sewing handmade masks. It's better than nothing. Yeah. So I mean, I hope grocery stores or places that are essential at least come up with some creative ideas like a splash guard or something like that. But I think most stores they have the lines on the ground with tape 6 feet apart. I think that's pretty standard everywhere. And Mark, I do want to say you do look like you are broadcasting from a submarine.
I
bunker.
Awesome.
Cool bunker.
couldn't get to go up. I mean, I do have.
I'm getting seasick, Mark.
Yeah.
Those are actual portholes for my window.
That's so
I have-
cool.
That's
awesome.
realism right there. I love it.
My actual door to come into this office is actually a hatch. I don't know if you can see that. It's got a wheel
That
on
is
it.
so cool.
Very cool.
Figure if I got to work here, it's got to be cool, right?
Wow.
I love it.
Well, I do a lot of work for the Navy, right? So I figured, and the has, and not to steal the topic here,
Sure.
but it has backfired on me because what happens is I will do a job and then the guys down in Groton will fight to see who's going to come pick it up. Sorry you're getting seasick, but I'm in the middle of a storm here, you see. And they'll fight to come here to pick it up because they like to come into the office and see all this, But again, it's visual effects, right? I mean, I do visual effects. So anyway.
It'll look good.
Yeah, it does. And I want to mention something about those splash guards. I went to the IGA, the local supermarket here, our small chain. I go to the cash register. Big plexiglass shield to the left of the credit card machine. Okay? So if you stand to the left of the credit card machine, the person at the register is fine. But when you go to put your credit card in, okay, it's a clear shot. Because there's no glass there. I said, why didn't they just extend the glass and cut a hole so people can reach into to touch the credit card machine? Mm-hmm. And the employees there all said in unison, "I know, right?"
I was thinking the same thing when I saw my little sneeze guard at my grocery store. Same thing. Yeah. It's only in front of the cashier. When you step over to put your credit card in, there's nothing there.
That's right. And the other thing too is, what about us touching the credit card keys?
Totally.
So I go like this. I like flame broil my hand. But what I actually did was I actually took the advice. I don't know if I can show you this. This is a little squeeze bottle. I don't want to spill it. And this is actually homemade sanitizer I got from CVS. I bought 100% or 99% isopropyl alcohol.
Nice.
Olive oil gel, which I already had. And then some essential oils, lemon drops, which I had. And I said, hey, I can actually make my own. And the stuff I have is far more potent than the stuff I bought. So now I can make my own for as long as I want to. And I think I'll be doing that for some time to come because it smells nice. It smells like lemons. Yeah. I'm lemony fresh.
Very cool.
Indeed.
Lemony fresh. Well. So
tickets.
Well, we're gonna have to go to the break here, guys. So when we come back on the other side, we can still talk about our situation here as it is, but of course we have to get into ufology and the paranormal. I've got a great crew here tonight, so we have to touch on a multitude of subjects, some of which we had discussed briefly before. And before we go to break, I just want to read this for everyone listening from NBCnews.com. New information from the IRS on Monday shines more light on what people can do to get the checks from the government as quickly as possible. While many families worry about paying the bills and buying food during the coronavirus crisis, for Americans eligible for stimulus cash under the new relief law, the fastest way to receive it is to make sure they've filed a tax return for 2019 or 2018 with bank information so that the government can directly deposit the money. The IRS says it will use a person's 2019 return to calculate eligibility and automatically send the money to those who qualify. If they haven't filed a 2019 return, it'll be based on the 2018 return. So just keep that in mind. And my understanding is that the $1,200 check that would go to each adult individual is if you make individually $75,000 or less per year. If you're a married couple filed jointly in your tax statement, then if you're under $150,000, whether one of you makes more than 75, it doesn't matter. If your total between the two of you is 150 or less, you will get that stimulus check for $1,200 each. Beyond that, there's so much more to come. I'm sure another stimulus package is coming. So anyway, keep that in mind. Positive news to come. Alan B. Smith for KGRA Radio. We will be right back. Welcome back to Paranormal Now. This is Alan B. Smith, your most grateful host on KGRA Radio. Stay tuned for the last hour. We will open up the phone lines for you to call 85-KGRA Live, 85-KGRA Live. So you can sound off, ask our guests your questions, and share your thoughts on everything we talked about tonight and the COVID experience for you. So there are a number of subjects that I think that I'd like to talk about tonight. So I will start off with one that is probably the most controversial, and that is David Wilcock's video recently that he posted on YouTube. And I can see Mark cringing right now as we move into it.
I'm not the only one.
And it is
not at all.
It's a straight up conspiracy theory. However, I will say this, that when the coronavirus first released, or anytime I hear about some virus that goes wild, I think there's absolutely nothing wrong with just wondering, like, hey, maybe that was something that should not have been let out of a lab. I get that. You know, that's, I think, a fair line of inquiry. But you've got to really back that up if you're going to make assertions that it is fact. I'll just let you go ahead, Mark, and share what you have to say on his idea that this is a culling virus.
Well, any virus is a culling virus by definition.
Sure.
If people die, they're culled. Okay, so so he's always right about that, and guys like this always say things such that they have an excuse if it doesn't come true, like the oracles of old. They say it in certain language so they can be excused if they're not quite accurate, which usually he's not. He also said there'll be 3 days of darkness too. Did you get that?
I got that.
No internet, no phones. Right?
Yeah.
I'm sorry. Are we on Skype right now? This is the internet. Oh, and there's going to be mass arrests. What? Of who? Why? And he based that on the fact that 30,000 U.S. troops have apparently been mobilized to Italy. Mm-hmm. No. That can't possibly be for humanitarian aid, can it? Gee, what would make you think that? I just have a problem with Corey Goode and David Wilcock, perpetual fabricators, in my view, and I'm public about that. I've asked them a million times, give me proof, show me proof, and they just choose to say, look over here, and they play the old misdirection game, and and then they always like to say things like, well, prove that it's not true. That's the proving a negative thing. It's like, no, prove that it is true. The burden's on you, and they just never seem to take the challenge. And this latest thing, same thing. He's just struggling to be relevant, in my view.
Carol, what do you think?
I totally concur. It's this leap. It's a kind of, I don't know if it's the look at me generation that they are playing to, but it's sort of, and I just the words fear porn come to me. It isn't just mainstream media that's doing this, generating this. It's sort of like, here's how I can segue my particular topic into what is now currently relevant, but it's not relevant. It's manufactured. It's manipulated.
Yeah, like Solar Warden.
Yeah, there you go.
The whole Solar Warden thing. I just went through a whole conversation about that online too. Sorry, I keep putting my hand in front of the camera, but put it there instead of over there.
There you go.
But so again, and that's Corey Good sounding off with his fantasies. So, but that's it. I shouldn't say any more because then I'll probably get really bad. But I try to be professional about it. But when people like that show such a lack of professionality, and they leap to conclusions, and I don't know, what you guys think. Okay. Particularly these two guys in the corner down here. I don't know what they think, but I'd like to hear what they think about it too.
Yeah, Jason, what's your feeling on this particular commentary of David's, and just the idea of, making assumptions about dangerous things?
Well, as you stated in introducing this topic, things need to be based on fact. You need to be able to have facts to cite to when you're making grand claims, when you're making any claims, but especially grand claims. And David has never been one to deal in facts, and I wouldn't expect him to start now. And I don't think he has any interest in going down that route because he never has and doesn't need to. He's got his audience. He's catering to who he wants to cater to, and it serves him well. And because of that, because of his track record, I don't take anything he says seriously. Yeah. Yes, it's certainly possible that some of the crazy things he's saying might have some truth behind them. But number one, I don't pay attention to it because he lost all of his credibility a long time ago, if he even ever had credibility. It doesn't serve me well to entertain anything he says. If he wants to bring some proof, maybe I'll consider a little bit to look into what he's saying. But from what he's demonstrated, there's no reason for me to waste my time to even entertain anything that comes out of his mouth. He's somebody who loves attention. People will give him attention, and he's going to continue that. I mean, I don't remember what year this was, Mark, and I don't remember if you were there, but this was probably 2009 was the first time I met him and saw him at a conference. It was the International UFO Congress in Laughlin, and half of his presentation was spent forcing people to listen to him play the flute. That right there told me how much he needed people to give him attention.
I can't tell you how many times I've been tempted to play my ukulele on the air, but I don't need to do that to you guys.
I would applaud that. I would applaud that.
No. That's
you
like
can tiptoe through the tulips.
It's for
voice of
there we go.
Yeah. No, I joke around about that. That's my own little hobby. I don't need to do that for other people. It's just for me. I'm bad at it, but I enjoy it.
You play the ukulele, Alan, and I'll play the didgeridoo, and we'll do a duo.
That would be pretty cool, man.
This needs to happen.
Yeah.
Alejandro Rojas and I played didgeridoos. I showed him how to make them. Anyway,
that's hilarious.
That's just me.
Ryan, what do you think? I mean, and also after Ryan makes his comment, what do we all think about just any sort of conspiracy theory in general that deals with life-affecting side effects, implications?
Yeah, so we all are in a quote-unquote field with anonymous sources, unsubstantiated claims, I think, at times. Sure. Yeah. But I did watch a good portion of the video because I was not that familiar with his work. Yes, I know the name Corey Good. I know that they work together with the Blue Chicken Aliens and what have you. But Sorry, I had to. I noticed, I'm looking at the video right now. It's got about 10,000 views on YouTube, which is a lot for having just released this morning. But like Mark said, there was a PowerPoint presentation throughout the whole thing. It was almost 3.5 hours long, first of all.
Yeah.
And 3.5 hours of saying nothing. Yeah. Absolutely nothing. With the last 10 minutes spent promoting his workshops and his videos and his wife's workshops, this, that. Watching him talk for that long, it's so clear what his motives are, what his agenda is, and people like him. You look at the entire Q movement as well. I know some people buy into it, some don't. Personally, I do not, but that's me personally. But there are these theories that can be, when spoken on a platform like he has, that can be dangerous. Mm-hmm. I mean, there are conspiracy theorists, YouTubers, and podcasters who are demonetized or deplatformed daily because it's dangerous what they're doing. So when it came to this and telling the world that the internet's going to shut down, all the phone lines are going down, mass arrests are going to occur, this can send people into a panic. And you have no idea how they're going to react. Look at how we're reacting when the world thought coronavirus was you needed 1 billion rolls of toilet paper to survive this thing.
Well, Ryan,
now you go to the store.
That's because toilet paper doesn't get corona. Don't you get it?
That is true.
Virus
Mark, I'm
free.
holding you to that.
Are you drinking a Corona, by the way?
No, this is a Leffe Blonde Ale. I thought it was perfect to bring to the family gathering.
Cheers. Yeah.
But I won't ramble on. I watched the entire thing. I took it with a grain of salt, and I don't believe a single word of it. If the internet shut down, that'd be pretty scary. I mean, what else would we do in the 21st century? I guess read a book, talk to that person who is next to us. Yeah, so if it happens, egg on my face, but I wouldn't get too worried about the internet shutting down. You have to think, if the entire internet went black, I mean, hospitals use the internet on a daily basis. Doctors, law enforcement, the military, they're not going to shut the internet off to do whatever it says he's going to do.
Who's they that they're going to shut the internet off? Keep that in mind.
But that's
good point,
a distributed network,
right.
and you can't. There's no switch. It's let's shut off the internet, Frank.
Very good point, and that's how he left it. They are going to shut off the government, or excuse me, shut off the internet.
Yeah.
The government shut
Freudian
off.
slip. Okay.
Our government runs the world internet.
Right.
That's
Wait a minute.
right.
So,
Actually,
yeah.
my feeling about him, and not to be very specific, but he has a specific agenda. Okay, his agenda is something that.
For all those who are listening to radio, I just want you to know that Mark D'Antonio is floating dollar bills in the screen.
It is a great optic, I just want to say.
His agenda has to do with the almighty dollar. Let's be honest.
Okay, so I'll say this. Well, Carol was the one that linked me to this video in the first place. So, and her and I chatted about this already, and just one of the earlier things he was discussing is the susceptibility of the male populace to this disease, and then that was a red flag. Blah 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 blah. But Carol and I were saying, well, and I think Carol, you think you were the one that pointed it out, that men in China, a large majority, are heavy smokers, and so any sort of virus, when it adapts or mutates, I'm not a scientist, but it looks for, not looks, but it preys on weakness, and so the respiratory system of men in China, maybe that's a reason. It doesn't have to be. It doesn't have to be a conspiracy. I don't know. I'm just throwing that out there. But what the point is that there might be just some natural explanation as to why the virus adapted to target or was more effective at affecting men's respiratory system over others. I don't know.
Right.
I have a theory about Spain and Italy, but go ahead, Carol.
No. Well, I just wanted to toss into Alan that you're not a doctor, but you could play one on TV. But the other thing is that we are perhaps talking about generational nutritional deficiencies.
Yeah.
Not just prenatal, but how many generations back do you want to go? Where I'm certainly not meaning this as anything politically divisive or that they're not any less human or deserving of a good life than we are, but obviously, but there really might be something in the fact that what is the term we're hearing a lot now? Immunocompromised. That even without a specific disease, that their immunity just is not what ours living in a relatively good positioned Western world is.
And there's a comorbidity too that's unspoken about, which is, another underlying thing which actually exacerbates corona in their bodies. Now, in terms of the Italian and the Spanish populations being hard hit, it was a no-brainer for me. I know why they were hard hit. I said it right from the very beginning, and it turns out it looks like that might be true. But we'll wait for the study. There'll be a sociological study that's going to confirm this in about 3 years, I'm sure. My name ends in a vowel, okay? And so my father was Italian, and if you've ever gone to an Italian gathering, people you don't know, men you don't know, you walk up and give them a hug, okay? Italian culture is very tight-knit and close. Mm-hmm. It's a touchy-feely, organized family unit, mm-hmm. And I've gone to Italian gatherings where my face and shirt were covered with lipstick from aunts, and I couldn't wait to get out and wash it off, okay? And there's even men that would give you a kiss on the cheek. Your uncle give you a kiss on the cheek or the forehead, mm-hmm. especially if you're small. And when you're older, you get a hug. You never shake hands. You always hug, okay? There's that sort of... And that means, touch, here, have my virus. Here, have my virus. Let me have your virus. I didn't get your virus yet. The bottom line is that there is going to be a cultural aspect to this virus. And the other thing that's important is if we look at the virus, it's actually related to demographics more than geographics. Yeah. Okay? The demographic is more important than where it's located. If you go to Italy, you're not more susceptible to it as an American going over to Italy, other than if you're around infected people, than going to Norway, okay? But the fact of the matter is you will still run the risk of catching it, but you're not as gregarious as the Italian people or the Spanish people, then you're going to be a little bit more conservative anyway. And so there's that piece of it. And in the Italian mortality of this virus, 12% of the people that died, only 12% are under 67 years old. All the rest are older. There's an older Italian population. I know all of them. I know every single one of them. They're all grandpa and grandma, okay? And they're the people that say, you're going to be sick? You get over here. I take care of you. I don't get, no. It doesn't matter. I don't give a no. Don't worry about me. Mm-hmm. I take care of you, because that's how they are.
Yeah.
And you're not going to be able to stop them, or you'll insult them. And if you insult them, it's worse. I'm not kidding. Trust me. I've get the scuffle-keel, I got kicked in the back of the butt so many times by, aunts and uncles that I got mad for just because I rejected their kisses. Yeah. And one of them had a wart on her face. I didn't like that because it was hair sticking. Oh, it was terrible. But I had to let her do it.
Did you ever get those cheek kisses where it's like kind of drool, wet on your face? Yeah.
No, yeah. The ones I got.
I had those growing up.
Yeah. And the ones and it's the same person kissed you, and it's like I feel the hairs. Yeah.
But it's all love, man. It's. I mean, that.
You know what?
That's so beautiful, though.
It is. As a kid, you don't want to feel that. As a kid, you want to run away from it. As an adult, you wish for it again. Mm-hmm. But the Italian culture is very tight and close.
Yeah.
And that's why this is happening to them the way it is. I can guarantee you that this is probably one of the biggest factors is their culture.
Yeah. Before we take to the break, and we'll transition hard into ufology, I will say this, that years ago when I first was hearing about and listening to David Wilcock, I found him utterly hypnotizing and fascinating. But when he came on the scene, he was talking about metaphysics. And so metaphysics, you can speculate about so much, and it doesn't matter. You can pull, history, mythology, religion, bring it all together, wrap it up, and talk about it. And that's fine. And you can speculate all day as you want. So I think for years he just could say whatever he wanted because there was no negative side effect. It was all actually very positive. Which is, I think, a different change of tone as well. He had a very uplifting message, and I really liked it. It's like when someone is religious. I may not believe in the religion, but if the message is positive and uplifting, that's awesome. Great. And somewhere along the lines, that tone has changed. And I think when I saw this video, it just really hit me. Like, wow.
I love the old David Wilcock. Okay, because that's all very important stuff.
Yeah,
the visceral human experience. I mean, that's very important to understand who we are. Look inside. Who's looking out from behind these eyes, inside this head? I mean, there's all kinds of things along in that arena. Exactly. Harold.
Yeah, spirituality in general, but here on this program, and Ryan and I were talking about this a little bit recently. It's a slippery slope because this is an open platform, and I do let very speculative, people come on here and talk about things that might be in that sort of outrageous range. But eventually, there is a line that you have to draw. And I started Paranormal Now on IRN years ago, about 3.5 years ago, something like that. Carol remembers.
Yes, I do. The good old days.
The good old days.
Well, these are better good old days.
These are great days. And so since then, I had never felt like somebody crossed that line until recently. And I won't say who that guest's name was, but Carol probably remembers. It was related to, we'll just say Nazis, and we'll leave it at that. And it was really disturbing to me, and it was the first time ever I just had to comment on it, and then I had like a whole diatribe the following week because it was just eating at me what he said, and I felt bad that I didn't challenge him better on the air when he was there. So on occasion, you just have to call people out. Even if you like someone, you just got to say that's not right. You cross the line, and there's nothing wrong with that.
You did a great course correction on the next show. I think, originally when he put this forth, you were sort of like thrown, as we all were.
Yeah,
but you really, shall we say, acquitted yourself admirably. So,
thank you. Well, I'm going to acquit myself now for this break, and we will come back on the other side with a positive message. I don't know. What do you guys got? Let's lighten the spirits up a little bit and inspire some people out there, because it's tough, man. It's tough being inside a box, though we do have Netflix, so
try being inside a dome in the winter, huh?
Yeah, true that.
There we go.
Yeah,
expect it.
Yeah, there's a lot to be grateful for. So
astronomy, right?
Yeah.
Oh yeah. And these have phenomenal things they're doing too. So we got this is a good crew you got here, man.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, I'm really appreciate everyone joining me tonight. So we'll be back on the other side with plenty more to talk about. Alan B. Smith for Paranormal Now. We'll be right back.
Your official contact for the best alternative talk on the planet. KGRARadio.com.
Welcome back to Paranormal Now. This is Alan B. Smith, your host tonight, and I am with Jason McClellan, Ryan Sprague, Carol Carl, and Mark D'Antonio, and this has been a fun night. So if you're just joining in, we've been covering mostly the coronavirus, a little bit of conspiracy theories, and now we will be transitioning into ufology, thank God. Okay, so I brought this up to you all earlier in the email, and I'm really curious what each of you think, not just about Skinwalker Ranch, but Bob Bigelow himself, because there is a new series coming out on history. So I think this would be a good time to kind of prime our minds for that before we digest that show, however it's going to be. So, Carol, what's your take on Skinwalker?
Well, first of all, a long time back, it's like, oh, not the Bigelow Tea guy. Oh, the aerospace guy. And he did an interview. I'm going to get this wrong because I didn't take the time to look it up. I should have. With I want to say, I'm not even going to go for her name. It was some mainstream media. And this goes back maybe 3 or 4 years. Maybe one of you guys remembers, where he was up close and personal with this anchor woman and talked about how. Say again?
Yeah.
Was it 60 Minutes?
Yes,
60
yes.
Minutes.
There we go. It was 60 Minutes. And I still can't think of the broadcaster's name, but there we go. And he spilled. Yes.
No. So.
Okay.
No,
I think so.
Oh, no. But it wasn't 60 Minutes? It
was 60 Minutes.
It was. Okay, but irrelevant in, I hate to say this, who cares about who the broadcaster was? He sort of spilled in terms of his interest in UFOs. This was sort of first blush. This was kind of the first publicity that, unless you really dug, the general public knew about his interest, even though it was rumored. This was sort of a substantiation, even including the fact that when he was a child, again, I'm weak on this. Either his parents or his grandparents had actually seen in the desert something fly over their car that they could not explain. And it was sort of like, oh my God, so here we go. So we knew Bigelow, those of us who were into the field a little bit, knew him as being behind the National Institute for Discovery Science, et cetera, and then Skinwalker. Besides the aerospace stuff. So I don't know, it tracks, and yet is it wrong to just make an assumption that this is valid? So take it, anybody. I'm looking at heads nodding. So,
Mark, go ahead.
And I'm passing the torch here in terms of what do we think about what he now says, and about, of course, good old George Knapp's involvement in all this, and Jeremy Corbell.
Go ahead, Mark.
Well,
go ahead.
Oh, I'm sorry, Mark. I'll jump in and just say, yeah, I mean, we all have our own varying thoughts on all of it, but Jason and I are good friends with Jeremy Corbell, the filmmaker who made the Hunt for the Skinwalker documentary with George Knapp. So, we might have a little bias, but at the end of the day, it's fascinating to see the evolution of Skinwalker Ranch and those who studied it. And, everything that Bob Bigelow may have investigated or researched with his time there is classified in terms of his involvement in his research. I know that he personally spoke to the new owner of the ranch, and they talked, and he walked him through the ranch. But every document or file or experiment Bigelow did is his, and it was not shared with the new owner. So we are literally starting from scratch with this new owner, this new television show, and this new era of what could be going on at Skinwalker Ranch. So I'm excited, to be completely honest. I think it's interesting how Bob Bigelow has carved his way into both the paranormal and the UFO worlds, and how passionate he is, and how his conviction is there, saying, they're already here. We don't have to look in space. They're already here. Yeah. That's a big statement for someone of his stature and reputation to say. So he must have some sort of evidence that made him truly believe that they are here. So
yeah, I kind of feel like that is the message that he repeats a lot, confidently. On mainstream media, he's like, "We're here."
No question.
No question. Yep. Like, okay, why are we wasting our time? Yeah, go ahead.
Bob Bigelow. I love Bob Bigelow. I've always loved Bob Bigelow. Being a space geek, I certainly have followed everything he's done with Bigelow Aerospace. He's a leader in the private space industry, and unfortunately that may be going away for a while. We'll see. But, he's always been vocal always been vocal about his interest in the paranormal, and he's, my favorite kind of billionaire, the kind who will, instead of spending their money on big houses and yachts, he spends his money on investigating the paranormal. And he's probably the private citizen who spent the most money investigating the paranormal. Primarily responsible for everything we've heard recently with government involvement in Skinwalker Ranch and in recent UFO studies with the whole ATIP and OSAP, all those programs, Bigelow was closely tied to and partially responsible for. And George Knapp is a good friend, and, from the moment I first read his book about Skinwalker, I was hooked with Skinwalker. That was the place I wanted to go and do an investigation because it had a little bit of everything. All the paranormal things just like plop there. Let's go find them all. So I love George, and I thought that book was really well done with Colm Kelleher. They did a really good write-up, but at the same time, what we know from that investigation time period is very limited. So now to have this history show, The Secret of Skinwalker Ranch, it's exciting. I think we're going to see more. What we actually see, I don't know. But I'm certainly excited to get probably what's going to be my only inside look at Skinwalker Ranch.
Yeah. I don't know if it's a concern or not. Maybe it's fine. But for those who watch Curse of Oak Island, like we do, there's a lot of filler. So I suspect it's going to be a show like that. That doesn't mean it's going to be a bad show. But I wonder and I hope, will there actually be good investigation, number one? And is there really anything that you can actually show for it? Because it's been investigated, especially with Bigelow for decades. And as fascinating as it is, I mean, you can't catch anything on camera, it seems like. That's definitive, right? For a place that has all this activity, it's an enigma. And, it's one of those cases for me where I wonder how much of it is fed by our imagination and how much is there a legitimate phenomena going on there? I don't know. Mark, do you have any thoughts on that?
Yep.
Do you want to share them?
No.
Okay.
It was a comic pause there, but I actually respect Robert Bigelow because I think the Bigelow Aerospace side with the inflated tats, as I call them, the inflatable habitats, okay, I think that is actually a tremendous offering to the putting bases on the moon in a way that we can afford, adding onto the space station in a way that we can afford, going to Mars in a way we can afford, because your habitat doesn't have to be a rocket body that you've been hauling out there with you. It can be this little folded up thing. So I have a feeling that, so I like that. I was around for when Bigelow had invested in the whole debacle with MUFON. And that wasn't a pretty time for MUFON. I've been in MUFON for since 1979. Actually, I started in MUFON in 1971. I was 11 years old, and I guess I've seen it go up and down. I've seen it almost dissolve. I've seen it rise to tremendous heights. But I just want to do my photo and video analysis, and I want to make sure that people just get an opinion that's based on science, I actually have had experiences that I can't explain. In fact, I went to Norway in August, and I actually did what we call a New Sciences tour. It's something where on one end, okay, we had Kat Torv Olsen, who's doing her metaphysical hybrid talk, and me doing an astronomical talk, and somehow the two blend together. And now she's writing a book on cosmology, and she can't solve an equation. She can't even write one. But the philosophical concepts that she came up with, I'm going someplace with this. Trust me. I'm still on Bigelow, I promise. The philosophical concepts that she has are things that we have to pay attention to because I think there's merit. In the same way, Robert Bigelow, okay, for all the things that people say about him, like, oh, he just wants to own all the data. It's like, well, fine. If we're going to get answers, I don't care who owns the data, as long as we can see the answers.
Yep.
Yeah, okay, it'd be nice if somebody could share the data, okay, and all that. And I'm okay with that. And like I said, and Jason said it. He's like his favorite billionaire, which I think is kind of a cool way to put it. And I think that's something that makes a lot of sense to me. So I'm okay with Robert Bigelow, and the fact that he says they're already here. Well, I know they are too, but I'm an astronomer. Shouldn't I not talk like that? Won't that hurt me in my academic career? I mean, well, yes, maybe, because I was also on a U.S. nuclear submarine as a guest, okay, and I saw something I couldn't understand on the sub, and neither could the sonar guy, and it was a very fast-moving object that moved several hundred knots underwater. It was there and it was gone, and the kid had no idea how to classify it. He had his hands up, like, well, what do I do with this? And the XO said, log it and dog it, which means log it and then get rid of it. And I had the opportunity to work for the Joint Chiefs 4 years later. And I was sitting in the home of one of the chiefs. And in my head, I was thinking, ask him the question about the fast movers. Okay. And then I started to think about asking him. And then I thought, no, don't ask him. But my brain had already started the words. And out they came. I'm sitting on his couch and go, no, don't say it. What about the fast mover program? Oh, did I actually say that? And he looked at me and he could have said, get out of my house. Or he could have said, I have no idea what you're talking about. But he said, I can't talk about that program, Mark. I'm sorry.
Okay, well,
but that tells you that Joint Chiefs know they're here.
Yeah.
Okay. Bigelow says they're here. I witnessed something I can't explain.
Mm-hmm.
And no one on that submarine at that time could. And this was decades ago, by the way, decades ago. So this is crazy.
Well, I think we have all probably had an experience similar to that. And there's just something about that. Like when someone in your life or someone's in your life say things like that to you, or nod, don't answer you directly, but they have a little twinkle in their eye when they respond, and you just can feel it in your gut, like, there's something going on here.
Yeah.
That can help make us believers.
Yeah.
But that's just us. It doesn't help the other people who haven't had that experience.
Think about, Alan, how the media treats the people who say they have experiences, right?
Mm-hmm.
If I go to the media and say, I saw this thing on a submarine, right? Well, you know what they're going to see? Here's what they're going to see. I saw this thing on a submarine. Yeah. And it was big and it was round and traveling hundreds of miles an hour underwater.
So they see a stereotype absurdity.
Absolutely.
When they're talking to you or whomever, it doesn't matter.
That's correct.
Right.
And so with the advent of actual science,
mm-hmm.
okay, that's brought to bear on the equation of whether they're here and proving that they're here, the media cannot argue with science because, let's be honest, they're not scientists.
Yeah.
Okay? They can't argue with it. So if someone says it's here, well, it's based on the science. See the science? Okay, here's the study we did, and here, blah, blah, blah. The media respects studies. The media respects data.
Yeah.
Because they can't counter it because they feel like they'd be foolish to try and countermand something they have no knowledge of.
I was watching CNN, I guess almost 2 years now ago, when they were reviewing the Tic Tac UFO. So I guess it must have been like early 2018. And Neil deGrasse Tyson was on there as their science guy. And the hosts were like, this is crazy. What is this thing? And he's like, well, I don't know. And they're like, yeah, but blah, 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 blah. He's like, it's a UFO. I don't know. That's all it is. And it just frustrated me to all ends because he wouldn't even take the extra intellectual level of honesty and say, okay, I don't know what it is, but here's what's interesting about it. Here's some lines of investigation we can go down based on what we see. It wasn't even that. Like he wouldn't even touch it. that's what hurt the most, is that it was just completely ignoring and playing down this thing that I thought is, whether it's a UFO from another planet or whether it's what, it doesn't matter. It's fascinating, and there's plenty to be looked at, and yet he just wouldn't do it. That's what got me upset the most.
I sort of appreciate that approach more than the typical approach that somebody like, he typically does, or Bill Nye the Science Guy, where they offer a definitive explanation saying, that's it, done, when they have no idea what they're talking about.
Touche. You are correct. Absolutely. I would much rather have someone say, it is a UFO, I don't know what it is. But it's like, I just feel like we're so close to having that really constructive conversation in the media, and I thought this was a really good opportunity for Neil deGrasse Tyson to walk over that line a little bit, because Michio Kaku has no problem doing that.
No, he doesn't. Yeah, he talks about string theory is where it's at, man. Okay, and we know in the science arena that I deal with in astronomy and astrophysics, I know that there are possibilities that are just at the fringe of our intellectual understanding, never mind being a more distant technology. Okay, we can defeat the speed limit of light in the universe. Okay, we can just do an end run around it, okay, by warping space. Okay, that's a whole show in itself, right? So, so I'll do that on my show, because, this is your show and we don't want to talk about that here. We sort of want to touch upon it, but I think Neil deGrasse Tyson is actually coming around a little bit. And you know how I know that? I know that because he actually connected with me in LinkedIn. And I am someone who, he sent me a request, and I'm not saying to say, look at me, and not that at all, okay? Because I was in the boat saying, well, he'll always be one of these evidence deniers, So why is he listening to what I might have to say? Because maybe I'm a science guy who looks like I'm on the edge, perhaps, to him. Well, I'm a science guy that actually is actually convinced that we are now and probably have been visited for perhaps billions of years. And I mean, that's not a wild thing to think about, right? Because we're carbon-based creatures. We need oxygen to make energy in our bodies. Our planet is full of oxygen in the atmosphere. It's actually a disequilibrium of the planet. It doesn't want to be this way, right? So if we actually can put ourselves in a position of an advanced race 30 light years away, they're going to look, if they're carbon-based, they're going to look for other oxygen planets, with that in the atmosphere. We're trying to do that now, So they probably did it 1 million years ago, perhaps 1 billion years ago, if they advanced to that point. And our oxygen's been in the atmosphere for over 2 billion years. So we're 2 billion light years out, man. Stephen Hawking said, don't send the signal. Don't let them know we're here. Too late. We did it over 2 billion years ago, and it wasn't even our doing.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's a really good point. And just to refer to a comment that Jason had made earlier, I think, Jason, you were alluding to Bigelow laying off the workforce. Right. And taking a hit there. What do you think? What does that mean? Can you speculate on that?
It's to be determined, really. Yeah. I mean, people who worked at Bigelow Aerospace and previously worked for Bigelow Aerospace prior to the laying off too, have asserted that it's a complete liquidation of all the business's assets. So if that's the case, that means Bigelow Aerospace isn't coming back.
That's difficult to hear. Do you think that will that affect his funding or interest in the paranormal at all, or is that completely separate from?
I would imagine that would free up his money for the paranormal, right? Because then he wouldn't have to tie it up in rockets. So.
Okay. Yeah, good. So
what Jason said, I think that's smart.
If we can get just a few more billionaires to not buy yachts and investigate into paranormal, we might have something.
That's all we need. I mean, we need to get Elon Musk to shift his focus. I mean, he puts his money into good stuff too. I love what he does. But if we can get him to put some money into the paranormal, we'd be all right.
I have been a lone voice on Twitter, tagging my state, city, and governor to get Elon Musk to come in here and revamp our subway system, to no avail. But that would be my dream,
Yeah, we need some space tubes for sure, man.
Gosh, seriously. Yeah.
Can I add one thing?
Sure,
Ellen?
sure,
I
yeah.
think in terms of Bigelow and the liquidation and him possibly going away, we got to keep in mind too, whether you hate him or not, the whole Tom DeLonge thing and to the Stars Academy. Now that they're pumping money into researching metamaterials from possible downed UFOs or what have you. That's a big deal with the Army's backing to do that. Or you look at these members of what could be an invisible college. We don't know which scientists are looking at this off the record or in the shadows, as it were. So, I mean, I have hope that there are other scientists out there or entrepreneurs with a lot of money, like the guy who now owns Skinwalker Ranch or DeLonge and their thing. Or you look at someone like Jacques Vallée, who's been collecting materials for years and is getting really, really interesting results with the scientific experiments he's doing as well. So, it's sad to think that Bigelow private space exploration might be done, but I do agree with Jason. I wonder if he will now focus his efforts back on the paranormal. I guess we'll have to see. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah,
fingers
We're
crossed.
all crossing our fingers here. Yes.
All right. So what about
Jason, when did you find that information out? Were you doing a story about him or something?
No, I was just, I'm friends with some people who used to work with Bigelow, so I was just following what they were posting online about it.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. And so if you have questions for our guest tonight or you have a story of your own to share, you can call in about 10 minutes. We'll open the lines. That's 85-KGRA live for the Paranormal Radio app hotline, 85-KGRA live. So, I think that, Bigelow being around as long as he has, there are a lot of conspiracies out there about him being on the wrong team, as it were, because his name just keeps popping up, no matter what the situation is. So is there a chance, do you think, that he's not playing for both sides, as it were, the enthusiasts like us and the government, or is he just really good at as a salesman at getting himself involved in projects?
I think money grants you access to a lot of things. And certainly if you have money and can be involved or can spearhead a lot of these projects, if you've got money, you really have your pick of the pool. Everybody's going to want to work for you. And we've seen that time and time again in this field. I mean, anytime somebody ponies up some cash and says, hey, you want to come be involved with this? People in the UFO field, they don't really care what it is. They're going to flock to you and say, yay, something that pays me money. Everybody wants to be involved. So I think that's been the case with a lot of what Bigelow's been involved with. He's had money, and certainly with the ATIP and OSAP programs, he had contracts from the government. Exactly. He had that cash to be able to pay people. So he was able to really put out a call and bring in all of these various people. And I mean, Bigelow's not the only one. You look at a lot of other people who have been involved in many of these UFO projects over the years. John Alexander is another one, good friend of Bob Bigelow, and has been tied in with all of these programs, Skinwalker Ranch, all of it. Yeah. So, I mean, there's a lot of that, but you get a lot of the same players too, because although the UFO field is somewhat big, it's also incredibly small.
That's true. Everybody knows everybody else.
Yeah. It's like Cheers.
Yeah, exactly.
Nobody knows your name.
Yeah. Higher stakes, but yeah.
Ellen, can I add, in terms of the financing of these programs or these investigations into the unknown, I think it's important too to look at the new owner of Skinwalker Ranch. He specifically states, that I want no help from the government. Whereas we know a lot of the work that Bob Bigelow did at Skinwalker Ranch was funded by government money. So now that we have Skinwalker Ranch now under new ownership with a gentleman who respectively does not want to work with the government or classify any of the information he finds, he did say that he met in Washington and briefed them on what he was doing. So, I mean, that's a whole other story. But in terms of financing, I think, we just got to hope that more excited, passionate, rich people will get involved and to constantly look at their motives and agendas as well.
What do you make of Brandon Fugal?
I think he's cool. I mean, he's been very transparent from the start. Not in terms of his identity. That's something we just learned. But when it comes to what he's doing and what he plans on doing, I think he's been pretty straightforward. He doesn't pretend to have answers. He doesn't pretend that there's going to be any bombshells coming out of there. But look, he did this for a reason. It wasn't to make money. So who knows what's going to happen. I guess we'll have to wait and see the TV show. I know he's going to be involved with that, but I think he's a pretty cool dude just from him now coming forward and talking about it. I'm on board so far.
I agree. It's what we just were talking about, hoping for another person who wants to spend their money on the paranormal. Here we go, a guy with money. Why Skinwalker Ranch, and then doing a TV show so we can see Skinwalker Ranch and go along for the ride with some of these experiments and see what happens. And Alan, I share some of your reservations, concerns about the new show, and what will we really see? Will there really be any meat to this show? And I think Brandon really wants to He's not really focused on entertainment. I think he really is passionate and wants to find answers to these mysteries. So that gives me hope. But also, probably next week, well, I guess this week, on RoguePlanet.tv, we're going to make an announcement. We've got a show we're rolling out that is directly tied to The Secret of Skinwalker Ranch. And it's, it has people involved from the show who are leading this new show that we're rolling out that will give people a chance to really hear the inside, sort of behind the scenes of making the show, as well as talking to some of the people on the show and finding out about how it was made and what actually went on during the investigations.
Yeah, I think you're right. It goes with my analogy with The Curse of Oak Island. Even though there is a lot of filler over, I guess, almost 7 years now, they actually have found artifacts. And in the past couple of years, they've made some really significant discoveries, which I think is great. I just think you can condense that into 5 episodes, But at the same time, the reason it's one of the most popular shows is the same reason we do this program, which is like just living in the mystery. Like, there's something about going on that journey and not getting the answer, and just getting little tidbits along the way. And that's something that keeps bringing me back to ufology, to the paranormal, shows like that. Okay,
I just want to talk. Oh,
no, go ahead, Carl. Go ahead. Yeah.
Okay, the new owner of Skinwalker Ranch, because this name is new to me, Brandon Fugal, Fugal. He's 46. He's a real estate developer from Utah. And here's his quote. This is from Newsweek magazine, of all places. Quote, "Science and discovery are what drive me. It's not money. It's not that I'm obsessed with UFOs or little green men or cattle mutilations or shape-shifting demonic entities. I have no idea if aliens exist. You'd have to ask them." End quotes.
Oh, that's a brilliant quote. That is
so
a brilliant
he's
quote. I love
from.
that. Yeah. I don't know, Mark, do you have hope that he's going to discover something? I know you tend to be a little more conservative on these matters for the most part.
In general, I have to be conservative because I as a science person, I don't want to jump to conclusions, right? We want to we do the proper scientific method with the science we can. But when we don't have science, we have to make some kind of speculative assumptions. On the submarine, I speculated that this thing moving several hundred knots was nothing human, nothing that any humans made. Okay, it certainly wasn't a supersonic whale fart. Okay, let's be clear. Okay, but on the other hand, I did look up to be clear. The Navy was granted several patents just recently, and Ryan and Jason, you guys may know about this. I don't know. These, and maybe Carol, these patents that were granted to the Navy were for very high-speed underwater vehicles that could move way faster than current technology allows. And we're not talking about torpedoes. We're talking about vessels. All right? They were just granted patents for this. Now, I look at that and say, well, if the patents are just granted now, does it mean that maybe this existed decades ago and they're just patenting it now? I mean, you can't say it's not true. From a science perspective, which is what I base things on, I would have to say, well, it could have been that it was being tested way back then. Look how long it took the stealth fighter to go into production and become known. I mean, those number of years, right? Well, I'm talking decades for this, but this is a huge technology. But they said the patents that were granted allow the Navy to now own technology that will allow them to go really fast underwater, as if the water isn't really a factor, and really fast in the air as well, doing maneuvers that are unlike any known to any aircraft or submarine to date. Okay, that sort of sounds like, well, every UFO that we are talking about now, does that mean it's all one of ours? We can't say it's not.
It's an amphibian.
What's that?
An amphibian machine? I mean, what are we talking about? Do we have any idea?
Well, it's a technology applied to an undersea vehicle versus technology applied to an aerial vehicle. The same technology can be applied to both with differences.
Gotcha.
I mean, air is a medium just like water. Okay, it's just thinner than water. Okay, so the concept of how these vehicles travel through a medium is sort of the big thing here. I don't know what they've patented because I didn't read the patent because I can't get access to the patent. Okay, because it was a secret patent, but the patent has to be logged in the U.S. Patent Office, and so I saw that, and it's like, wow, that's pretty impressive. So we can't say no to that. So we don't know about yet, and we don't know the answer to that question. You know, Carol has her finger up in the air, so she's pointing at the ceiling because it's about to fall.
I have my ceiling fan. No, can you substantiate that meme? That the validity, okay, apocryphy or not, the fact that the United States military has for a long time had stuff, technologies that are 50 years ahead of what we then come to find out commercially. With that 50-year thing, what's your take on that?
Okay, in my view, because I do a lot of work for the Navy, I work on submarine designs for the Navy, which is, again, I'm General Dynamics contractor for doing those kinds of models, right? Among everything else I do. And I worked on boats and models and designs that are 30 years from being cut in steel. Okay. And so there is, I wouldn't say 50 years. I think that's just a round number people are playing with. Okay. But I know for a fact that all the technology I've dealt with, the stuff that we're seeing now in the water is stuff I've built models of 20 years ago, 5 years ago, before it was ever out there. So maybe 30 years. But that's how long it takes to mature a technology from an idea and be able to do the actual thing. When you put people's lives in danger, when you stick them inside a boat and travel underwater, you better have your technology in line. So they spend a lot of time, working that out. So that's my experience with it. But again, I'm only in that little narrow zone. I did let my clearance go 2 years ago during my recovery. I had to learn how to see, walk, and talk again. That was kind of an important one. So I said,
all-consuming, yeah.
Trying to maintain a clearance is just not going to do it. So I begged out of the program, got out. I was read out of the program. If they want me back, they can get me back. But I'm not interested. I have my life back now. I have privacy again. So I don't know. I think, Alan, and to answer that question, I don't know what he's going to see at Skinwalker Ranch. I don't know whether there's going to be any revelations. I'm conservative, yes, but I'm also hopeful that it is something beyond. I mean, I know there's things here, and we've seen them,
Yeah. In regard to your comment about the round number of 50 years, because you hear that tossed around, right? And we don't really know. I mean, one technology might take 20 years, and the one might take 50 years. How advanced are they? I find it interesting. I think it was called the M drive that NASA was fairly open about some years ago. Do you remember that? It came out. They had like a very small study.
I do, and it's not. I shouldn't say this on the air, but your mic suddenly went very, very low. So I'm not sure what happened there. I heard, I think, most of what you said.
So the M drive in NASA.
There you go.
You good? Okay.
That's back.
Yeah. What do you think that is? Because it's like an time warp drive. Why would they even talk about that openly? If in fact we have such advanced technologies already.
Well, part of the problem is that most of those designs are figured out in a university by a mathematician or a physicist or an astrophysicist. In 1994, Miguel Alcubierre came up with the Alcubierre drive. It was a tensor. Jason knows what it is. Ryan knows what it is. I think you also know what it is, Carol. And Alan knows what it is because we talked about it, I think, on the show. But he came up with that in 1994. EagleWorks Labs, that's a NASA-funded lab that Sonny White is heading up this division of interstellar propulsion. And he's actually, getting money to look at this drive. It wasn't practical until they reworked the geometry of a potential ship and found that the energy requirements are drastically reduced if you use a different approach. So you see...
well, I think originally wasn't like the energy of a sun required for the Alcubierre drive, something along those lines. Like,
you hear a lot of different things, and what I tell people publicly, because that's I think the best way to say it. It used to require the equivalent of converting the entire planet Jupiter, the biggest planet in our solar system, to energy, and using all that energy to create this what's called a warp bubble around the ship to help it, warp and bend space so that we can actually pull the distant things closer to us, and suddenly we're there, But now with the reworking of the geometry of the ship, it's more like the size of something like the Voyager spacecraft. So the mass difference is like 10 to the 26 power difference,
Sure.
That's a huge difference. In fact, enough so that NASA said, maybe we should fund a lab to look at this. Because if we could actually send a Coke bottle-sized probe to Alpha Centauri in just 6 days, that's better than the 12,000 years it would take now.
Absolutely. Yeah. And
so see,
are you optimistic that technology, that we can get there?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely I am. Yeah. And all we have to do is look at our past history in technological discovery to see that. Do you remember the days when people said if you go supersonic, you're going to blow up? Yeah. Ooh. Right? These guys know. They're all nodding their head. They know. Yeah. So, and again, any technology that's sufficiently advanced looks like magic. We talked about that, and there's a lot of magic that we see with UFOs, isn't there?
Oh, absolutely.
Strange things.
If you have any magic to share with us tonight, the phone lines are open. So the Paranormal Radio app phone line is 855-472-5483. That's 85-KGRA live. So call in, wait for your cue, and we'll get you on the air. Just sound off. I do want to hear, especially all y'all in the chat room, what it's been like for you now during this coronavirus episode of ours, and any comments that you have for our guests tonight. So I do want to make sure we don't get to the end without hitting some positive things. So I'll start with this, and I posted this like all over social media. My new favorite movie is Troop Zero. It's on Amazon. I literally was tearing. I mean, I tear up when I watch a movie, but I was literally tearing when I was watching this, and laughing. And it was just such a heartwarming film. It just filled me with humanity. It was so beautiful. So anybody out there who just needs to feel good, that's a great film to watch. In other news, rockets are being launched into space nonetheless. So that's positive. We now have a Space Force engaged in that regard. That's another topic. We don't have to go down that road. But for y'all, what do you have that's positive that can you can share with everybody, uplift their spirits, something that they can do? Jason,
Minas?
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah.
What?
Silence fell across the room.
I might as well. I'll do a little shameless plug for a thing Jason and I recently did over at Rogue Planet, we put together a self-quarantine list of UFO content to consume while you're stuck in your homes.
Very cool.
And we're constantly updating it every day. So I started it, but I certainly don't want to end it. So if people in the chat room or anyone has any ideas of UFO content you think people should use their time with, this would be a good opportunity. We had a lot of fun looking at the list and talking about a lot of the UFO content that's out there that we would suggest. And Alan, I have a recommendation too, a show on Disney Plus called So Weird. Okay. It's from the, I want to say the mid 90s maybe.
Yes, that was in your article, right?
Young girl went out on the road. It's like the X-Files. She's out on the road with her mom, who's a rock star, a literal rock star. Yeah. And she's investigating everything from ghosts to Bigfoot to UFOs and everything in between. And I will tell you this, for a show on Disney and for a character as young as this one is on the show, the protagonist, they tackle some really interesting concepts and theories in terms of quantum physics and the early days of the internet and the simulation theory. Yes. Really interesting for Disney, but I highly suggest people check it out. It's fun and it passes the time.
Yep.
I like that.
Yeah.
Well, what about,
can I do a shameless plug then?
Please do. Yeah.
If people are going to be shut in, and I've been noticing that my subscriber numbers are actually jumping daily. It's crazy.
Mm-hmm. I thought they might.
Yeah, because people are like, what do I do? Subscribe to this. I don't know what it is, but I'm subscribing to it.
Just subscribe.
We have an observatory that we run on clear nights. It's called Sky Tour Livestream, and it's on YouTube. And, it's public outreach in astronomy. It takes you into a beautiful big observatory to see the deep sky in seconds using special cameras that we've got here. And it allows people to see what it's like to go exploring the deep sky, see things they've never seen, galaxies, star clusters, things that they just can't see with their eye.
Yeah.
And we have an observatory here in Connecticut. In fact, it's 80 feet that way on my front yard. But we're actually starting one in Arizona. We have a second full observatory we're building in Arizona right now. Corona's kind of, slowed it down a little bit. But we poured the concrete pad. We're adding an instrument in there. We're putting another telescope, another building out there. And we're going to be looking at the sky from the Sonoran Desert, where the sky is absolutely pitch black. It's beautiful. So it represents a huge jump in technology. And if you're really bored and you can't wait for the next Clear Night Sky Tour live stream, well, then you can always buy The Populated Universe. That's a book I wrote, and that it was a long time coming. But it's a book about, the exoplanets and the search for extraterrestrial life here and out there. Really cool. So and the movie, by the way, it's a TV series. The best TV series right now that I like. I'm a geek. All of you looking at me know that. Okay. I like Picard.
Okay, because I
good show.
All right, so I think I'm going to take this phone call and then we'll come back to Picard because I have some thoughts on the matter. So Ron, you're on the air. How are you, brother?
Hello. And thank you, Alan, for a live show, and thank you for the roundtable discussion. I love this format.
Oh, thank you. Yeah.
It's actually a square table, Ronald.
And anyway, mine is actually rectangle, if you want to be specific. But anyway, I have your big book. I have your big book, the large format, if you call it that, of the populated universe. There you go. I had the wrong title in my head for a minute.
Sorry.
I'm looking right at it, and I couldn't get it to work there. But anyway, nothing has much changed here on the little postage stamp where I live at. Pretty much just a cornfield and highway. But I think in town things change. Some places are not open, or they're delivery only, like some of the restaurants and stuff like that. Yeah. But then a grocery store, like I'll go in and get my medication and I'll get a few things, and it's like I'm like thinking I got to do this really fast because I don't want anything, getting on me or anything like that. So mentally, I'm thinking, usually I don't move that fast, go through the grocery store. I just, get what I need and go. But now it's like, I mean, I'm like you're talking about warp speed. That's I'm going,
Right.
Yeah, seriously, right? Yeah.
And you're in Minnesota, right, Ron?
yeah. Yeah, we have almost I think we're like close to 700 positive cases or close to that now, and we have like 12 deaths in conjunction with the virus.
Mm-hmm.
That might not sound like a whole lot to something like New York or even some like California or something like that, but I mean for our little state, that's a big number. When you think about it.
Yeah, that's more than enough.
Speaking of New York, Alan,
Yeah.
I was talking to someone today, and it remains to be substantiated, of course. But I think that the state police in Connecticut are stopping cars coming over the border from New York, and not stopping them and turning them around, but saying, "Where are you going? How long are you going to be here? Let me take your information." We have to know where you are in case you don't even know you have this. You know what I mean? And
I didn't know they were taking information. Okay.
What's that?
I didn't know they were collecting information like that.
Well, I mean, in a pandemic, I mean, it's kind of important to be able to track people, and yet you think of your rights and right to privacy and all that.
Yeah.
It's a slippery slope, But what do you do?
Well,
somebody comes over from New York and they head over to Danbury, Connecticut, to see a friend, and they go, out for a walk in the park, and they end up getting someone infected. Now that person has this infection. How'd they get that?
Yeah.
So they can put the numbers together that way.
Yeah. Ron, thank you so much for. Oh, go ahead, Ron.
Yeah, Alan. Yeah. I'm just gonna say that's the whole point of staying at home is that you don't want to travel to transmit the virus or whatever. But anyway, I know it's difficult if you want to get out after you stayed at home for 6 months in the wintertime. But anyway, all right. Thank you very much, Alan, for the call, and I hope that everyone has a great and safe week, and we'll get through this.
Thank you.
I believe that.
I believe it too.
We will.
I believe
You
it too.
too, Ron. Yeah, stay
Thank
safe.
you so much, Ron. And I'll say that New York, we went from our typical speed is warp 10. We went from warp 10 to warp 0 real fast. So it's been an odd adjustment for all of us here. And even if you out there, you're in a different state and things aren't the same as here in New York or Washington or California, wherever, Florida, it's affecting you all. We know that. I know New York gets that attention, that idea that we're the center of attention and we think it's all about us, which sometimes could be a little true. But we get it. This isn't all about us. Yeah, this is about the nation. And Mark, I think there's a point to be made there. If I have an emergency and I'm going to the doctor, right? They need my information to take care of me. And so it's a slippery slope, but there are times where for the collective good, we do have to do those sort of things, I think. I think it's important. So we have another call here. I'm going to bring them on the line before we run out of time. So Mike from Chicago, you're on the air. Do you have a question or comment?
Yeah, I just got a question for you guys, and I also want to say, Alan, I love your show. Thank you for everything you do, as well as race down at the KGRA.
Thank you, Mike. Appreciate that.
I have a question for the whole panel here. Yeah. I'm just curious whether to your guys' thoughts. Do you think this virus is a natural occurring virus or potentially a man-made virus?
All right. Who wants to take that?
I can offer my unconsidered opinion. Okay. I've heard a lot of talk saying that it was engineered in the lab, all that. And at first, that's what was released by the press because everybody leaped at the fact that it had to escape from a lab because it's so virulent or whatever. Then they talked about the live animal market in China where this originated. And so as far as I'm concerned, we don't really know. do we? I mean, the public doesn't really know. I mean, we have to wait for all the data to come in, and we have to wait for someone to do a study and say, hey, how did this actually get loose? Was it really from a lab? I don't know what you guys think, but that's mine. We can't tell right now.
I think the question would be, is there any evidence to suggest that at all right now?
As far as I can see, it's one of these interspecies or transspecies diseases that actually jumped. I mean, we had that with several other viruses in the United States that actually not shut us down, but it caused very similar, very different, but similar methods of behavior in the people. We had people wearing masks. We had counters that were separated from you by a tape, and this was 30 years ago for another one that passed through. I can't remember which one it was, but I was a kid, pretty much when those were happening. So I wasn't really, had to be more than 30 years. Sorry, I'm old. Anyway.
But we get it. Yeah. And Mike, I'll say this. Last week we had Dr. Joseph Birx on the air, and I think he laid out a pretty convincing argument that this is just a natural evolution, and that when SARS was first released, I think was 2003, viralists were saying that the natural progression is that eventually something worse is going to come from this, and we should prepare for that. So it's fascinating to me that the past 15 years, how many years, we've been 17. Gosh, we've been told by conspiracy theorists that this is going to happen, and that it's made in a lab. And then we also had just biology virologists saying it's just natural. And I think that if virologists were out there for 2 decades saying, hey, this is gonna turn into something real, we need better prepare. To me, that's not a cover up. But
sooner or later they'll be right.
Yeah.
Again, there's a third option too. Sure, by the way, yeah. It's not just in a lab or naturally occurring. It's also something delivered by a panspermia methodology via something from outer space.
Right. Yeah.
Look up Chandra Wickramasinghe. Okay, he's an astrophysicist, and he and Fred Hoyle had this theory about organic molecules in space a long time ago, decades. And lately, he's talked about the possibility that this is an interstellar virus. Yeah. I don't think so, and neither does he really. But you can't say it's not there. In other words, it's not from there because we don't know.
Correct. All right, Mike, do you have another question before we go?
No, Alan, I believe that's it. I just want to say thank you for everything you do and the KJRE does. I tune in every week. You guys are the best. Keep it up. Thank you.
All right, thank you, brother. Appreciate that.
Good night, Mike.
All right, so the minutes are counting down. So, Carol, if you can leave us with something uplifting.
Well, I suppose this could be uplifting. On this date in 1848, the Fox sisters finally, and the Fox mother and father in Hydesville, New York, called in the neighbors to hear the rappings that had been bothering them for weeks and weeks and weeks. They seemed to uptick whenever father was reading his Bible, etc. And through a series of raps, it was deduced, and it was very, very halting because they used the alphabet. A is one rap. Okay. They determined that this was the spirit of a peddler named Charles B. Rosna, who was murdered in that very place, the Hydesville cottage, for $500 that he had sewn into the lining of his jacket. This started via what it actually began was the American Modern Spiritualist movement, which started tables turning and rapping the seances in everybody's parlor throughout the country. It died off eventually. In the 1880s, the fad, in the 1880s, Maggie Fox, who was in dire straits and needed some bucks, took some people up on their offer to say that they were faking the entire thing. It wasn't true, but her redaction was subsequently redacted. However, it was said to signal the death of modern spiritualism. So, but it was on this date the neighbors came in, and Charles B. Rosnow rapped for them, giving away a lot of secrets, including a woman who had never told her husband her true age, and there it was. So that produced much hilarity. But
and when we say rapped,
howdy, a shout out to the Fox sisters.
Yes, when we say rapped, we're not talking musically.
Oh, no, it was not. This was not musical. Although, okay, no, this was a series of knocks, of raps. Yeah. They were also known as the Rochester Rapping Girls. Knocking girls. But no, not rap as we know it. However, hey, what a tune that could be.
So that's it, Ryan. What website do you want to direct everyone to?
Oh, yeah. Jason and I are always pumping out new stuff over at Rogue Planet, rogueplanet.tv, or you can find my website and everything I'm up to podcast-wise at somewhereintheskies.com.
Okay, great. Jason?
Brian said it, rogueplanet.tv. That's where we put all of our stuff. But all of our social media, usually at Acentric, that's ACECENTRIC on Instagram and Twitter, and on Facebook, facebook.com/the UFO Geek.
Awesome. Mark?
Oh, you can find me at Skyter Livestream on YouTube and in Facebook by the same name. And my company is at fxmodels.com.
Carol?
Well, I hang out every Friday, 7 p.m. Eastern, behind the Obsidian Curtain on kgraradio.com. Your source for all things paranormal, etc.
All right, beautiful. Thank you.
She's a co-host on Skyter Livestream.
Yes, that's
yes.
Right, yeah.
When you bring me, that is. Listen, I have learned so much. I can't even tell you. So, we'll be getting a check in the mail.
Yeah, right.
All right. Well, thank you so much for joining Family Night, as I'm calling it now. I just haven't come up with a better name, but that's the essence of it. So, thank you all. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Great time. Thank you.
All right. So, for everybody who's listening, if you want to find out more about the #1 radio online provider for our alternative contact information, ETs, UFOs, paranormal, what have you, kgraradio.com. That's the sticker right there, Carol. Thank you. And I want to say special thanks to our KGRA producer, Race Hobbs. I appreciate his support ongoing, especially through this rough time. Even at KGRA, there is some adaptation that is occurring. And that right there is a family unto itself. And as Carol and I sort of alluded to earlier, I'm really, really grateful to be a part of that family. So to all of you out there, please be well, take care of yourself, take care of each other, lead with love, and until next time, live in the mystery.
So that nothing will change.